It's Crash issue 43, and in this video we've reached August 1987. The cover art this month is a tribute to Fred Astaire, who had died in June of this year. The summer months brought a mixture of games including 4 Crash smashes. Let's find out what the top 10 were. In 10th place with 70% we have Inspector Flukit from Top 10 Software. In this text adventure you play the title character, Inspector Flukit, called to solve the mysterious disappearance of Professor Mundell. Derek Brewster, reviewing in Crash, found that although at £1.99 this was a cheap game, it was surprising how often it comes up with clever retorts to your input. He was positive about the abundance of characters and the use of a verbs command to tell you what verbs the game understands. He was less positive about the dodgy input system and felt that the pictures were not of a high quality. However, he found that if you persevered, there was a super detective story just waiting to be discovered. Presentation-wise, it's very good, but definitely taking inspiration from The Hobbit in terms of layout and font. It's a shame that the game feels very slow, responses to your key presses are sluggish, and the game takes a little while to respond. The number of non-player characters is good, but like The Hobbit, they have a habit of repeating certain actions over and over again. It's frustrating that the game sometimes appears to block your movement without giving any good reason for it. It's reasonably different from other games, so maybe worth a look if you like adventures. In 9th place, with 72%, is Slap Fight from Imagine. This is a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up with you piloting the Slap Fighter over the surface of an alien planet. Richard Eddy found the Spectrum version of this better than the arcade original, although nothing miraculous. Despite describing it as frustrating, he rated it as addictive and the game that should appeal to fans of the arcade game. He praised the beautifully defined graphics, although felt that the sound was weak. Paul Sumner criticised the game as the bullets were too hard to see, but he liked the detailed landscape and super smooth scrolling. He summarised it as one of this month's most addictive blast 'em up games. Mike Dunn was more critical, describing it as an extremely dubious shoot 'em up. He criticised the poor graphics, and again the difficulty of seeing enemy bullets. He summarised it as a disappointment, but felt that fans of Xevious may find it reasonable. It's another vertically scrolling blaster, but the problem with this one is the monochrome display. It tends to make everything blend together and makes it very difficult to see the bullets coming towards you. A disappointment, considering that this game is 9 months later than Light Force from issue 34, and yet seems a step backwards in terms of colour and clarity. You don't really seem to have enough precision in the control of your ship, and being hit sends you further back. On the whole, it's a frustrating game and not one that I'd want to replay. In 8th place with 73% is Roadrunner from US Gold. This is an arcade game based around the children's cartoon and arcade machine of the same name. You play Roadrunner and have to race down the road eating seed whilst being pursued by your nemesis Wile E. Coyote. Nick Roberts praised the sound and well-composed tunes, but found the graphics average. His main criticism was the way in which you had to load every level from tape. Mike was impressed by the presentation of the game and title screen, but was disappointed by the game itself, particularly by the finickiness of the positioning needed. Overall, he felt it a bit of a letdown. Robin Candy found the graphics reasonable with smooth animation, but criticised the attribute clash. He found it a simple game and good if you liked the arcade original. The game starts well with a great title screen, well presented main menu and jolly tune. Unfortunately, everything goes to pot when you play the game. A fairly bad horizontally scrolling chase, click the seed, but don't go too near the top of the screen or the background overwrites your character. Not only this, but the attribute clash gets worse the further on you get in the level. Neither good graphically nor in gameplay terms, although the sound isn't bad. But this isn't a game I can recommend. In 7th place is the game 3DC from Elite with a score of 74%. This game was released on a pack of 3 games called Trio. Although the compilation as a whole only scored 70%, each game received a separate rating, 3DC being the only one to score enough to be in the top 10. This is a 3D isometric arcade adventure set underwater, in which you have to collect parts for a submarine. Nick described the game as good, with a simple scenario but special effects that make the game worth a look. Ben Stone found this a corny title, but with gameplay, ace effects and pretty graphics that made this the best game of the package. Mike summarised the game as quite good, and particularly liked the end game screen. On hearing about this game, I was expecting a variant of Hydrofall reviewed 2 issues ago. It's nothing like as good as that. It's yet another 3D isometric game, putting me most in mind of something like Greyfell from issue 38. By this point in the Spectrum's life, it's nothing special, and although perfectly okay, certainly doesn't either break in new ground or really have anything compelling about the playability to make it stand out. Given that this is the best game from the pack in which it was released, it doesn't say much about the rest. Play it if you're a real fan of 3D isometric games, but don't bother otherwise. In 6th place, with 75%, is Operation Berlin from Right Choice. This is a text adventure and follow-up to Operation Stallion, reviewed in issue 41, but not reaching the top 10 in that issue. You play a spy called John Blake with a mission to recover some plans for a nuclear-powered engine. Although finding the pictures to be slowly drawn, Derek likes some of the small presentation touches when you interact with the character. Similarly to Inspector Flukit, this game offers commands that list verbs and nouns. He summarised it as a fine game with a neat outlook, scoring it mid-70s in all categories. This adventure has gone for larger pictures. I can definitely see the advantage of this. The half-screen layout did restrict the detail that could be put into a picture, so these, although not always drawn quickly, allow an atmosphere to be created. The game is well presented with good use of colour in the text, and there certainly seems to be a lot of detail in the descriptions. Not a game I'd heard of before, but pretty good as adventures go. In 5th place, with 77%, is Star Fox from Reactor, developed by Real Time, who did the original Star Strike and Star Strike 2. This is a first-person 3D space shooter in which you pilot the Star Fox around the 8-planet Hyturian system. Mike found the game impressive. He rated the graphics as better than Star Strike 2, with playability and addictivity in bundles. Ben found it boring once he'd mastered the basics. He described combat as slow and the controls as cumbersome. On the whole, he felt this monotonous and unplayable, and didn't recommend it. Robin didn't find this as playable as Star Strike, but preferred the graphics. He compared the fight sequences with Elite, and described it as a joy to play once mastered. It's yet another 3D space shooter. Okay, it's maybe the first we've seen since Star Glider in issue 36, but there comes a point at which they all start to blend into one. Star Fox is just another, a fine space shooter. If it wasn't for the fact this game had been done many times, I'd probably have more praise to give. It's acceptable enough, is playable, and does nothing badly except for using the Spectrum's default character set on the title screen. Try it if you like space shooters, but there are many better out there. In 4th place, our first Crash Smash of the month is Exolon from Hewson, with 90%. This was developed by a team including Raphael Checo, known for Equinox from issue 30. This is a 2D exploration-based shoot-'em-up, your mission being to traverse a planet using a blaster and grenade to remove all aliens in your way. Robin enjoyed a good shoot-'em-up and found Exolon an excellently presented game of this type. He described the graphics as highly detailed and colourful, and the movement as smooth. He called the game instantly playable and highly addictive. Mark Rothwell also praised the game's playable, addictive qualities and described the graphics as terrific. He recommended you go out and buy it. Mike described it as a really good game with superb graphics, excellent use of colour, and so much to do. All ratings were in the 90s. After a pretty disappointing month up until this point, Exolon is just a breath of fresh air. Raphael Checo had demonstrated his prowess back with Equinox. With Exolon he surpasses this, and produces a game that is a program in triumph. How a Spectrum game can be so smooth and colourful without colour clash is masterful. Not only that, the game is fun. Challenging but not frustratingly so, and compellingly addictive. There are some games that I didn't play back in the day and really missed out on. This is one of them, just incredible and justifiably regarded as a classic. In 3rd place, another smash. This, with 92%, is Micronaut One from Nexus, written by Pete Cook, known for Tau Ceti from issue 23 and Academy from issue 36. In this game you fly your ship through a tunnel network, tracking down and destroying fly-like predators called Scrim. Richard had found all of Pete Cook's works to be definitive landmarks of innovation, and felt that Micronaut One followed suit. He praised the use of perspective, and found the only letdown was the sparse sound, but he found the game enthralling, exciting and highly playable. Mike found it really attractive, a full, polished and thoroughly enjoyable game. He liked all the tiny little details which make a good game seem great. Robin found the loading screen a letdown, but the rest fantastic. He compared it to Zigzag from issue 5, but with fast and furious gameplay. He liked the exploring, although he had designed one of the maps himself so may have been biased here. He concluded by saying that no self-respecting games player should be without it. As a first-person 3D maze type game, this is graphically very good, with smooth animation and responsive controls. It's been a fair while since I remember something like this, maybe Vectron from issue 24. It's written by Pete Cook of Tau Ceti and Academy fame, although it hasn't quite hit the heights of those games. It's not bad, but I'm just not convinced it will have long-term appeal, but certainly worth having a go. Finally, there are 2 Crash Smashes tied in first place this month, both with 93%. The first is The Big Sleaze, released by Piranha and developed by Fergus McNeill of Delta 4 Software. This is a text adventure and a spoof of New York 1930s-based detective fiction. You play Sam Spillard, private detective, and have to solve cases that come your way. Derek described this as a piece of software that looked like a winner from the moment he opened the package. He found it a thoroughly entertaining trip through the sleazy lowlife of Manhattan and beyond. He called the programming competent and the presentation pleasing, but the main attraction being the writing style. He felt that Fergus McNeill had excelled himself with this game, while still providing the laughs which had made his name. Although scoring vocabulary only 89%, all other scores were in the 90s. This time, Fergus McNeill does for film noir detective movies what he'd previously done for the works of Tolkien. It's done to the style that we'd come to expect from Delta 4, with a witty approach taken to the writing and a good focus on the detail, both the long descriptions and the response to the examine command. Perhaps it won't have the immediate appeal of his previous games, but it's original enough that I think will appeal to anyone that enjoys spoof adventures or even the American detective genre. Also in first place with 93% is Taipan from Ocean. This game is based on the book of the same name by James Clavell and is set in China in the year 1841. In this game you start by raising money to buy a ship and then attempt to make your fortune through trade or piracy. Robin described it as one of the best trader games around, with colourful graphics and impressive 128K sound. He found it one of the most enjoyable games to come out this year and suggested that he wouldn't regret buying it. Paul praised the attractive and cleverly designed graphics, adding that it was tremendously addictive and playable. Richard found that although this wasn't an easy game, there were many sub-games to keep the player occupied. It was a game playable without knowledge of the original book, and he concluded by calling it one of the most enthralling arcade adventures of the year. Although I haven't got very far with this game yet, I'm impressed by what I've seen. A nicely rendered Chinese town and fine 128K music. There appear to be so many ways this game can be played, from trading through arcade adventure through to being a pirate. It's going to take a long while to even scratch the surface of this. Exolon is the better game for an arcade fan who wants to get into action quickly, but this game is perhaps one for someone who wants to get deeply into a game, to save it and come back to it and explore different strategies. Certainly one I'll come back to more. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to see more videos about retro computing from Nor Logic Retro.